Thank you. First of all, I would like to add my voice to thanks Würth Phoenix for organization and invite me to this presentation. So thanks to them. Okay, now let's start. I will make a presentation, a speech about what you could need and the trends nowadays in the monitoring area, and what you could need to be the king of monitoring in the next decade. Maybe not so long, but I hope you find both trends, nowadays trends, what has been discussed in communities, ideas, and also the tools that are going to make things better for us. I hope so. A few words about me, to know who is speaking. It's always important. You've already noticed the poor English accent. I'll let you read the next few things. Okay. What we'll see? I told you, this is the focus, a balance between the nowadays trends, good ideas and tools that you can already find in the open source. And this is some predictions, if I can say that, about what you may need, the things you may need to make your monitoring more efficient or more global, more incorporated in your infrastructure. This is what we will see. Okay, the first prediction, if I can say prediction, is you may need to have big distributed architecture. Why, you may ask? And I say because 1 minute polling interval could be the standard tomorrow. It's already there in banking business. Customers already ask for 1 minute polling interval. Nowadays, it's more 5 minute polling intervals. 1 minute polling interval is 5 more loads on your server, on your architecture, on your monitoring architecture. The biggest reason for me you may need a big architecture is virtualization, because we are making more and more servers now with virtualization, where we had in the past 10 physical servers, it's now 50 or 60 servers, because we are separating each task on the servers, so there's more and more to monitor for us, more checkpoint. Maybe you have the project to monitor the whole internet, so you will need for sure a big architecture. And finally, you realize that NDO util doesn't scale well. It's well known that now that NDO is the broken part of an Agios architecture. When you need more than 100,000 checks, this is where the data not flowing fluently. So for all these reasons, I think you will need a big architecture monitoring. There's already some tools and some ideas in the open source communities. The first one is ModGearman. Gearman is a server for distributing tasks in your infrastructure. It's not closely related to monitoring, but it can be used in monitoring. German people have developed a NEM module, an Agios even broker module, that you load in Agios memory. This is the ModGearman NEM module. And all the job for Agios is to ask the German server to make checks. Agios doesn't make any more checks. It just asks the German server to make them for you. The German server are splitting all those checks on worker as much as you want. With this kind of architecture, 100,000 checks is makeable. The next point with this kind of architecture is that you have the load balancing as well with that. If one worker is doing wrong, another worker will take his place and will make the checks. So you have load balancing, high availability, more with that. Second idea is with Isinga. They have started to think about message bus, which is based on 0MQ. And I think it's a very good idea. You will see later in the presentation why I believe bus message bus are good things in a big monitoring architecture. The third things I would like to discuss about bigger setup is Shinken. Shinken is a French young project. It has started as a proof of concept for making Nagios able to do some big setup. Is now a project on his own. So with Shinken, big setup is native, is by architecture. The developer has split every daemon of Nagios, every function you need in a monitoring system. He has split it in daemons, independent daemons, so you can start as many daemons you need to support the load of your monitoring system. You get an arbiter with cutting the configuration and splitting it on the workers. You have a scheduler with scheduling the checks, of course. You have Poller with making the check. The Poller is making the check, is doing the check. A reactioner is, in Nagios, what you need for making notifications. The reactioner can do notification, but it can also do everything you need, event handlers, for instance. And you have brokers. Brokers is just the Nagios event brokers. It's a part of the architecture when you can plug in, when you can plug third-party add-on or so. Well, now you have a big architecture setup for your monitoring. That's a good thing. I'm sure you will need an external referential. Nowadays, we often see that Nagios is the referential. This is not a good thing. It is not his job. Change management is outside the scope of the monitoring. It's a dedicated process in ITIL. So you need a referential, external referential, because a monitoring tool is not an inventory tool. You have to talk with an inventory tool, but not doing it with a monitoring software. Monitoring software is about doing checks, that's all. Your monitoring tool is not a CMDB, configuration management database. I have 3 projects to focus for showing different directions that are taken by referential. There's the referential in ITIL term, configuration management database, and it's the way of OTRS, which is ITIL compliant, and which is natively a help desk solution, but it has in a part of the software a CMDB, and it communicates well with Nagios. That's what I put it here. Second way of doing things is with tools like GLPI, which is basically an inventory software, but it has also a part of help desk, maybe less advanced than a tool like OTRS, but it works. And it also has some gateway with Shinken already. So when you make an inventory with GLPI, you have the configuration of Shinken was made automatically or near automatically. And the third way for doing a referential is with another kind of tool. The first one was a ticket tool, help desk tool. The second one, more an inventory tool. The third one is a change and configuration management tool. But he has also a part of inventory. He's get an agent with taking a lot of information from your servers. And I've already done some automatic configuration for Nagios with such a tools. It's based on your environment, production, test, development environment, and it's based on role you put on your server. If you have a DNS server, an HTTP server, all you have is to tag those servers to see them well configured for monitoring. It's really a kind of magic, and your referential is outside the scope of monitoring. So the flow is inventory and configuration depends from your inventory. So you don't have to always come back to your tool, to your monitoring tool, to adjust what you have in your inventory. That's a big step, I think, and I'm sure that you will use, if not already so, such a tools. A major point for me is the end-user experience. Nowadays, for the moment, Nagios and the tools alike are mainly technical monitoring tools. They are great for technical people, but they are absolutely not great for business people or for people responsible of an application, people who are not technical. They don't speak DNS, they don't speak HTTP. They speak the service that the end user use. This service is okay or not okay for them, that's all. If a user can use the service, okay. If he can't, it's not okay. You can tell them your DNS is okay, HTTP is okay. They don't mind. So, the end-user monitoring experience is for quickly know if a service delivered to a user just worked. It's a service in the ITIL sense. It's what you are paid for, delivering a service to a user. You cannot put an agent, a monitoring agent, on Google Mail. It's a joke, but oftenly now, your infrastructure is partly internal with your own servers, but it's also external with software as a service. And Google Mail is an example because now a lot of companies are using Google Mail as their main mail. So you cannot put Nagios agent in Google Mail. You can ask, but I'm not sure they will. You know or not that the sum of the parts monitored are not equal to the sum. I like this sentence. When you have a DNS, okay, an HTTP, MySQL, okay, network, okay, it doesn't mean that the application is okay and that your user is happy. You can have bottlenecks on the networks, you can have bottlenecks on the application, so the sum is not equal to the parts monitored. With technical monitoring, you only see the base and the fundamental parts. You don't see the top. This is what we need end-user monitoring experience. It's based on behavior-driven monitoring. This is what you expect your application to be. It checks functionalities, it does not check the part of the application. It's complementary of the technical checks because end-user monitoring tell you if an application is okay or not. Technical monitoring tell you where's the part not okay when the application is not okay, of course. So let me present you 3 tools that are making end-user experience monitoring a reality and usable now. It's not a new concept, of course, but the tools are quietly new and they are really now mature to make some end-user monitoring something real and real value for your monitoring. Of course, they are piloted, they are conducted by Nagios or tools alike. The first line, Cucumber Critical, is the output you see in Nagios. You see the step, in your scenario, because it's based on scenario. You write, if I'm on this page, I can see that. If I'm making Olivier in a username and ta-ta-ta in a password, I'm logging. You describe what you expect from your application. It's both for a light client, like web browser. It works with that, with a tool called Vatir and WebDriver. But it also works for rich clients, desktop client on Microsoft or Linux, with a tool called Siculi, in French, Siculi. Cucumber is an interesting part in that because it's an abstraction part between native language and what you will have to put technically to pilot your web browser or your application. So you can leave the description of the functionalities to people who know the application. It's not us, sysadmin or workers in the background in infrastructure. It's not us who know the application and what we expect about the application. It's people who are functional. So you can let them describe in pure French, English, Italian language, German language as well. You could let them describe what they expect from the application. You take that and you transform it in web browser steps or in screenshot with Siculi to conduct a scenario on your application. And all of that is given back to Nagios with the line I told you just before. Cucumber critical or Cucumber OK. So the stack is Cucumber, which is the abstraction language, Vatir, which is the technical language for describing the steps, and XLMRPC for conducting scenarios with Siculi or with web browser. Prediction number 4, we need more from our performance data. You know that Nagios is taking both state and performance data for making metrics and graphs. But we are relying now on good tools. It's not the problem, but quite old tool we have which have certain limits. Both on the storage side, because storing performance data is not an easy task. You get a lot of data months after months. So you have this problem, stocking big data. And the second part of the problem is graphing those data. And today, RD is the answer, is the usual answer, but it has some limitation for me. ARD database is not really easy to deal with. It's not easy to transport from a server to another. Try to export an ARD database, and you will see what I mean with that. When you change your operating system from 32 to 64-bit, your ARD database are no more usable. You have to rebuild them. And ARD graph is not user-friendly to make graph. If you have tried to make some template, some graph template with ARD graph, you will admit, I think, that it's a bit complicated. So there's a problem also with the graph rendered by ARD. You don't have, when you pass the mouse over, you don't have real value on a point. You have just a graph, but without any point, real point. You can't zoom. You can't go back in the time or things like that. Okay, there are tools that make things a bit more easier, but limitations are there. And at the left, you have an ARD graph. At the right, you have a graph generated by some more modern library like eye charts, for instance, for example. So there are tools, of course, that make a step further for having more from your performance data. On the storage side, there are now what people call big data databases. They are in the NoSQL movement. You have MongoDB, for example. We are able to store million performance data without any problem, with good compression and with storage efficiency. Another example is a project dedicated to storing performance data, which is OpenTSDB, which is a project really impressive for storing billions data, performance data efficiently once again. On the graph side, you have new tools that are all working with Nagios, of course. You have Graphite, which is the screenshot just here, which it's a tool dedicated to storing graph performance data with a tool called Whisper, and for graphing. And Nagios can send its performance data to Carbon, which is the daemon which accepts data from the network. Graphite is cool because you can do a lot of more things that you can do with ARD graph. You can make superposition of two graphs to compare values between two servers that are supposed to do the same thing. So you can see if the load is acceptable on both, if it is coherent. You can do really a lot of dashboards. This is an example of a dashboard when you can put on your screen a lot of graph. And it's quick, it's easy, it's cool. Canopsys is a young project. I will talk later. But it's compatible also with Nagios, and it also making a nice graph based on an iCharts library. An important point is that your direction is always asking for reports, for monitoring reports. And today, what you have with Nagios is just unacceptable. You can easily make navigability reports with tools like Nagios. The second question, or the second meaning for that is, can you have a SLA, service level agreement, based just on a ping, on the availability of a server? Is it the right thing to consider that your service level agreement is based on that? I think, but I'm not alone, of course, that service level agreement is surely more understandable and more compliant when you based it on the end user experience, based on the real availability of your application. If your user can connect to the application, you're okay. If he can't, you're not. So we could have a better tools for making quickly reports, not in days when you use tools like ETL or business intelligence tool. It's rather long to put some reports on the course. So we need to make SLA reports because it's at 80% the type of reports we need. We need to make them quickly, faster. And there are two things interesting in the open source area. Actually, there's a nice Isinga Jasper integration made by the Isinga community. And also, Canopsys has a big reporting part we'll talk about later. So, what we just want to quickly choose the time period on when we want to report, and the scope. This is all we want, and we want to make it quick. So I think we need better tools, and they are coming. Another part that we are asking to do with Negios, and Negios is maybe not the best tool for doing it because it has not been meant for that. Negios is at the basis a network tool, is made for making ping on equipment on the network, and is so open that we have made such crazy thing with Negios, like polling log files every 5 minutes to detect if there are new patterns of a type, but it just doesn't work. If you have tried that, it just doesn't work. All the plugins are messing up with log management. So we need better tools for that. I present you two tools, and I must go quick because there are not so much time. They work in conjunction each other. The tools are Logstash and Greylog2. They are really tools sought for log management. Logstash is an input filter output software. You can make it on input everything you want on output, and a powerful filter on the middle. A nice tool. And Greylog is a syslog daemon, syslog compatible daemon, and also a really nice interface. It also works with Negios. You can send alerts from Greylogs to Negios when certain amounts of messages for a typical pattern are too much. What I like with Greylog is that you make your filtering on the go. You have all your log flowing in the interface, and you can make real-time blacklist streams which are based on pattern you would like to classify, etc., etc. Really nice tool, and I try them, really. 7, mixed dashboard. Today we have an interface, a Negios interface, which is quite old age. And with this tabular view, really quite old age. We need to have mixed view with tabular view, with graph view like we saw just before, with map view, etc. We need mixed dashboard, and tools are coming. Negvis is one of the tools, well-known tool, and Shinken. The right part is Shinken, and it's just a view to see the correlation between an application and the part of the application, and to detect quickly on the screen where the application is getting a problem. When you have mixed dashboard, when you have end-user monitoring experience, technical monitoring, you need at one time aggregation and correlation. You need to aggregate the lowest impact. When you have, for example, a cluster, you don't care if one HTTP server of your HTTP cluster is down. You know you have 2 or 3 less to make the job. So it's not an important event. If your HTTP server is alone and is down, it's an important event. This is what we think about correlation. Aggregation is to make technical monitoring and end-user monitoring matching to see if there is a problem and where is the problem. It's about finding the root cause analysis and finding the business impact of a problem in your network or in your infrastructure. The tools for that, well-known is Negios Business Process Add-on, which is just working with Negios. There are also multi-site, CheckMK, and aggregation. You also get some aggregation tools in Shinken and its business view. And you get 2 autonomous tools, which is simple event correlator and not brain. We are working both with Nagios. And finally, there's now not a new concept, but a new term which is coming in the monitoring community. It's hypervision. Hypervision is known in virtualization, but it's not the same term in monitoring. It's for aggregating all what I said just before and making such a dashboard. This is an example taken from the web. It's a Gecko board and it's a Datadog HQ. They are software as a service, but they have really nice idea because in Datadog you can have graph, you can have events flowing in the interface, and people can comment in real time the events flowing. So if you want to complete your existing monitoring, this is certainly some solution you will have to have. And Canopsys is a new tool that is coming, which is want to be the first open source hypervisor. So I will not detail the architecture. I have no time for that. Sorry for being quick on the last part of the presentation, but I was a bit short in time. If you have any question, comment, thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Olivier. If you have any questions, we have a microphone. There is Arianna who will bring you the microphone so we can translate the questions as well. Any questions in the audience? Okay, then I have a question. From where does Schinken come from? Because for German-speaking people, it sounds familiar. Is it a German project?
No, it's a French project.
French project.
French
what does
project.
it mean in French?
Nothing. It means something in Japanese. It's
Hem. Isn't it? Ah, okay.
A sword to cut. The image was a sword to cut the configuration. Wow.
Okay, I got it. In German, it's ham. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. There was one question over there.
Oh, well, Olivier, sorry. There is a question.
I wanted to ask, on the Linux side, you have new developments like Upstart and Systemd. Do you see any kind of sense to integrate them with newer monitoring tools? You have a system like Systemd on Linux, on the newer Linux distributions, where all the part of logging and event management gets into one system daemon. Would it be a nice fit to have a kind of a connector from any kind of monitoring tool to that?
I didn't present it, but yes, there's some ideas to make a daemon for monitoring and for inventory, something that will have the two sides, because processes are different, but they are really close. So there are a tool which is really nice on the Linux side is collectd, which is nice because it's pushing the data, so you don't have to make some poll, and you can have real short interval. You can have 1 second or 2 second interval for taking data with a tool like collectd. It also works nice with Graphite tool I discussed just before, and maybe there's a place. I think there's a place for a kind of unified daemon on which you can plug inventory plugin, monitoring plugin, things like that. I think there's a place for that.
Okay, thank you.
I found your presentation very interesting, but maybe just one point missing. What about dynamic thresholding?
What about?
Dynamic thresholding.
Yeah. I think it's the following of the last part of the presentation. When you make aggregation, correlation, you will have the possibility, and when you have an automated system, configuration system for your monitoring tool, when you have inventory, I think you have all the things in place to put dynamic thresholds. If you don't add that, I think you can't, because you need information from your system. You need to hear your system to have dynamic threshold applied on your system. But it's really interesting because we need a dynamic threshold. Some customers have a system that are well loaded in a part of the year, and 3 or 4 days in a year, the system must be there under heavy load, and that's normal. So applying dynamic threshold could make less critical OK warning notification, could make less notification. So that's true. Dynamic threshold are.
Do you know if there is any tool in the open source which is capable to do it right now?
Dynamic threshold?
Yeah.
I think you could do it with a tool, with a conjunction of tools like Chef or Puppet, which are configuration tool. I think you can do that with such a tools and an Nagios tool, because you have the possibility to apply a new configuration to your monitoring tool based on what is flowing from your configuration tool, from your deployment tool, from your change tool. So I think with those two tools, you can achieve dynamic threshold.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other question? No? Okay, thank you, Olivier.